sign of the saw. Especially now he had a fine new commission. He'd be itching to get hold of a hunk of good oak and start. A set of chairs for Mr. Hartford. The judge. 6! With scrolled backs and turned legs, and carved fruit too, if Will had his way. He could fashion them right here, in this workshop. Touch wood. She put a hand out to the green-painted plank door that opened directly onto the dirt highway, before standing back to look up at the set of wooden steps that led up the outside of the building to a jettied balcony and a neat front door. 2 planks had been nailed roughly across the stairs to stop people going up. A hasty glance over her shoulder to check nobody was in residence, and Bess hitched her skirts up to her knees and clambered over and up the stairs. The door had a brass keyhole with a shield-shaped cover that slid over it, an escutcheon. She said it out loud. Escutcheon. Even the word meant quality. Bess nudged it with her fingertip, and it slid smoothly aside. The very sight of it gave her a shiver of pleasure. No barring their front door with a drop bar again. Imagine slipping your key into that lock like the gentry. She walked around the balcony to peer in through the windows. There had once been 4 chambers, but now one was a parlour with a scrubbed slate hearthstone and proper brick chimney, and another was a cookhouse and scullery with a sluice pipe leading straight out over the Thames. 2 bedchambers fronted the road. How fine it would be to perch above her husband's workshop, with the wherries and barges and all the trades of London drifting past her window. Close enough to the city to be good for trade, but far away from the smoke and trouble, far away from the slave hunters and the whorehouses, far away from her mother. Somehow, being up high, above the ground on this jetty, the wind blowing through her curly hair, made her feel like a queen in a castle. It was perfect. It was in Deptford, though, and she knew how Will would feel about that. Lodgings they'd always had until now. It would be a big step. Will would try to hedge out of it like he always did, by not making a decision. But somehow there must be a way. She had never wanted anything so much. Glancing at the board, she wrote down the name of the seller on a piece of paper. Then she kissed it, a big smacking kiss, as if somehow her lips might seal it as hers. "I beg your pardon, mistress." The voice was strident, and there was no beg about it. Bess turned. "It's private property." A large, square woman in a wide-brimmed hat was bearing down on her, accompanied by a well-dressed serving girl. "Private," the woman repeated, wagging a finger. "I know that," Bess said. "We'll be moving in soon. I'm Mrs. Bagwell." "Oh." The woman folded her arms. "I didn't realise it had been let." It was an accusation. "Sold? Yes." Bess smiled sweetly. "Just yesterday, Mrs. Fenwick. That's my house diagonally opposite. Strand House." She pointed to the biggest house in the street. "My husband is head draftsman at the shipyard." "How very nice to meet you, Mrs. Fenwick. We'll be neighbours then." Mrs. Fenwick looked her up and down, eyes assessing the rough broadcloth of her skirt, her old-fashioned stays and well-mended shoes. Bess drew back her shoulders and stood straight, keeping her smile fixed in place. Mrs. Fenwick sniffed. "I'll call, if I may, once you are established." "Please do," Bess said. "It's so nice to meet you." Mrs. Fenwick's mouth tried to smile, something it was obviously unused to doing, and then she strode away, the servants scurrying after her like a dog. Bess watched her go, ruminating. Best to cultivate a woman like Mrs. Fenwick. It would be good for Will's business. If I can bear it, she thought. "Here's the address," Bess said, pressing the paper down on the table in front of her husband. She patted him on the shoulder, which released a puff of dust. Will was a fine figure of a man, tall and blonde, with arms muscled from lifting timber and the fine-boned hands of a craftsman, but his clothes were always full of sawdust and wood shavings. He turned and smiled, with an expression that said he was ready to humour her. "It's on the other side of the Thames, close to one of the